Shalom, Wabaraka, Mispaka. In this video, we're going to go very much so in depth in explaining and proving without a shadow of doubt that the true Babylon is not in the Middle East. It's actually in Canada. It's actually in Canada. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to prove it. First, I'm going to show you guys scriptures. Then I'm going to show you guys the land. Then I'm going to show you guys some other sources. But let's get these scriptures first. First, we're going to go to Jeremiah 25:9. It says, "Behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith Yah, and Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and hissing, and perpetual desolations." As we see in this scripture, Yah is angry with Israel and tells Israel that he's going to use Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. He's going to take them out of the north and gonna allow them to conquer Israel. All right. And when they conquer Israel, they will destroy Israel. People have told me in the past that I should actually not teach that our land is in North America, because North America is the North country that we're supposed to escape from. This is not our land. All right. I've heard that in the past, and I'm about to address that right here, right now. The North country, well, it's Babylon. Whenever you see scripture saying the North country or the land of the North, that is Babylon. You see that mostly in Jeremiah. Why? Because during the time of Jeremiah, Israel was conquered by Babylon. All right. Jeremiah was sent to warn the people and to tell the people about the destruction that is to come. And this is a good example. He's saying right here, he's going to take the people from the north, the families of the north, Nebuchadnezzar, and bring them to Israel and destroy it. Here's another example. Ezekiel chapter 26 and verse 7. "For thus saith Yah Elohim, Behold, I will bring upon Tyrus Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings, from the north, with horses, and with chariots, and with horsemen, and companies, and much people." So as we can see, Yah said he's going to bring Nebuchadnezzar from the north to conquer Tyre. All right. It's very obvious. It's simple. Babylon is the land of the north. Now, people say that the land of the north is the land of the entire United States, all of North America, and it is Israel's final captivity. And since it is Israel's final captivity, it is not the promised land. I got a problem with that. The problem with that is Isaiah 11:11 and Zechariah 10:10 tell us where our final land of captivity is. And one of those places mentioned is Shinar. Shinar is where Babylon came out of. So one of those places are Babylon. Our people would be in the land of the north in their final captivity. And you see a lot of Israelites in Canada to this day. And Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, wasn't just Canada. It wasn't just northeastern Canada. It was also New York. It was also Maine, Massachusetts, DC. It was also Michigan. It was also all that entire area in that whole region. All right. That was all Babylon. There's a lot of Israelites in that north country today. And there's prophecies in Jeremiah that say that in the last days, The people will come from the north country and all the places where they're scattered at. All right. People say that's talking about Israelites leaving the U.S. and going into Mexico. No. That's talking about Israel leaving from whether it be New York, Canada, whether it be Michigan, whether it be D.C., and the other places where they were scattered, the islands, whether they were in Europe, West Africa, South Africa, wherever they're at. They're leaving their land and going into their promised land. It's not just the U.S. You know what I'm saying? The entire U.S. is not the land of the North. Only that northeastern region is the land of the North. And then you get areas like Quebec, Ontario. All that is the ancient Babylonian Empire. This is the book of Zechariah chapter 2 and verse 6. Ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith Yah. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, saith Yah. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth with the daughter of Babylon. All right, this stuff is simple. It says, flee from the land of the north. All right, people read this and they're thinking it's talking about today. Oh, we got to get out the U.S. We have to leave the U.S. We got to go to Mexico ASAP. We have to get out of U.S. No, that's not what I was talking about. This is Zechariah. And this is Zechariah in Zechariah's time, talking to the people in Zechariah's time, telling them to leave the land of the north. And who is he talking to? He says, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth with the daughter of Babylon. Babylon is the land of the north. This was talking about the Babylonian captivity. Israelites today, there's a lot of Israelites in Babylon today. A lot of us are in Egypt and Assyria as well. Scripture says that we will be in Egypt and Assyria as well in the last days, not just the land of the north. So now we know that the land of the north, or the north country, is Babylon and was the Babylonian captivity. Now let's see what will happen to Babylon after we left the Babylonian captivity. After we left the Babylonian captivity the first time, Yah sent a curse on Babylon. Let's find out what that curse is. Jeremiah 51 and 42, it says, the sea is come up upon Babylon. She is covered with the multitudes of the waves thereof. So we see, what did Yah do to Babylon? He sent the sea upon Babylon. He sent waves upon Babylon. If you look at northeastern Canada, Quebec and Ontario, as well as the Michigan area, the Great Lakes area, what do you notice? Did you know that area has more lakes in the concentrated area than anywhere else on Earth? Did you know Canada has more lakes than any country on Earth? And why? Because it recently was just flooded. The Great Lakes is new. At the bottom of the Great Lakes, they found all kinds of artifacts, which are definitely ancient and are definitely that of an ancient empire. All right. Now, knowing that, we must understand that those Great Lakes, those waves that Babylon was covered in, that's what the Great Lakes are. All right. And then we look at all those lakes in Canada, that's what that is. Yah sent a flood upon Babylon. He completely flooded that area. And then look what verse 43 says. Her cities are desolation, a dry land, a wilderness, a land wherein no man dwelleth, neither doth any son of man pass thereby. Now look at this. After the flood that happened in Babylon, obviously after any flood, no plants are going to grow, no trees are going to grow. It was a dry land. It's not a dry land anymore. but it had a lot of dry patches because no trees, no plants could grow after a high flood gets upon land, especially salt water. That was the sea that came upon it. That completely killed all the life, all the animals, all the people. But after years went by, those plants grew back. It's not a dry land anymore. Those plants grew back. But look what it said, verse 44. And I will punish Baal in Babylon. Just like Yah says he will punish the gods of Egypt, he says I'm going to punish the gods of Babylon. And I will bring forth out of his mouth that he hath swallowed up. And the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. Yea, the wall of Babylon shall fall. It says the wall of Babylon shall fall. All of Babylon's architecture will crumble. Understand that. I'm going to show you a video in just a minute of how there's a whole bunch of ancient architecture in northeastern Canada, which are that of an ancient civilization and even an ancient empire, that are just now being uncovered and people never knew about them. Like literal walls have crumbled and have been destroyed. I'm gonna show you guys Canada in just a minute, and I want you guys to actually observe how Canada looks so effed up. Canada looks more effed up than what people even think. You can tell something actually happened in that area. I'm gonna show you. Verse 45 says, My people, go ye out of the midst of her, and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of Yah. And lest your heart be faint, and ye fear for the rumor that shall be heard in the land. A rumor shall both come 1 year, and after that in another year shall a rumor come, and violence in the land, ruler against ruler. Verse 47 says, Therefore, behold, the day is come, that I will do judgment upon the graven images of Babylon, and her whole land shall be confounded, and all her slain shall fall in the midst of her. Then the heaven and the earth that is therein shall sing for Babylon, for the spoilers shall come unto her from the north, saith Yah. Now this is very historical. Look what it said. Spoilers are going to come unto Babylon from the north. So there's another area even further up north from Babylon. There's another place even more north in Canada that people are going to come to and spoil it. And where is that? That's Greenland. That's Norway. What happened? We know 1,000 years ago, Vikings from Iceland and Norway actually went to Canada, enslaved a lot of Canadian Indians, and destroyed their villages. This is historical facts. All right. Those are spoilers from the north. That's what happened in Canada, and it's in scripture. Verse 49 says, As Babylon hath caused the slain of Israel to fall, so at Babylon shall fall the slain of all the earth. Yah said, just as Babylon killed many Israelites, Yah is going to kill the Babylonians. Verse 50 says, Ye that escape the sword, go away and stand not still. Remember Yah afar off, and let Jerusalem come into your mind. We are confounded because we heard reproach. Shame hath covered our faces. For strangers have come into the sanctuaries of Yah's house. Verse 52 says, Wherefore, behold, the day is come, saith Yah, that I will do judgment upon her graven images, and through all her land the wounded shall groan. Verse 55, look at this. Because Yah has spoiled Babylon and destroyed out of her the great voice, when her waves do roar like great waters, a noise of their voice is uttered. So it says, when her waves do roar like great waters. This is important to understand. Babylon was flooded. The entire empire of Babylon was flooded with not rain, but literally the ocean came upon Babylon at one point. And literally you see to this day in northeastern Canada a whole accumulation of just ponds and lakes everywhere, and you can see that the ground looks all scratched up and beat up. And I'm going to show you that this area looks very, very messed up. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 22. For I will raise up against them, saith Yah of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant, and the son and the nephew, saith Yah. I will make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water. I will sweep it with the bosom of destruction, saith Yah of hosts. What is going on here? Yah says he's gonna make Babylon a possession for the bittern. What are bittern? Bittern are seabirds like storks and herons and seagulls and things like that. He's gonna make it a possession for those birds. But guess what? They tell us Babylon is in the Middle East, specifically Iraq. Iraq does not have those birds. It's not a swampland. It says a possession of bitter and pools of water. Look at this, pools of water. And I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith Yah of hosts. So not only is this area going to be full of water, but it's also going to be utterly destroyed. Let me show you something. Let's look at Canada again, just in case you never seen Canada through satellite view. It's a very weird looking area of land, honestly. Look at all those pools of water. You see all those pools of water, all those lakes? They're all up in Canada. They're all up in Canada. And then the Great Lakes are a prime example. They're a part of that too. Look at all this water. Now look at all this. It's all scratched up. Look at the land. It's just all scratched up and beat up. Like, that's a very textured land right here. And when we zoom in, the lakes just by the hundreds. You can't walk a mile without accidentally bumping into a lake. Like, this whole area is swampland full of bittern. There's a whole bunch of birds out here. A whole bunch of swampland. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't even dam this up. It's a lot of water over here. You can tell something catastrophic happened. Look at all the scratches and like that had to be catastrophic. Look right by the sea, like very sharp scratches in the land. How did that happen? Like, how did that happen? It's like y'all just took his fingers and just pimp slap Canada. Like, it's like scratches everywhere. You feel what I'm saying? Like, look at that. And let us not forget about this. I'm going to get to this later. Alright? But just look at all these lakes. Look at how bad this land looks, man. For real. Like, you can tell something of great force came over this entire area. Now let me deal with this. The Lewis-Babel Ecological Reserve. Alright? Literally called the Lewis-Babel Ecological Reserve. Now it's important for us to understand that this right here, believe it or not, don't want to sound too far-fetched or anything, but this right here is indeed the remains of the Tower of Babel. Alright? No other place on earth has a lake that is shaped like an exact circle. Just want to make that make sense. When we read what happened to the Tower of Babel, how did y'all destroy the Tower of Babel in the book of Jasher? It says 1/3 of it sunk into the earth, the other third of it burned with fire, and then another third of it remained on land. And then the book of Jubilees says it got blew away with great winds. So that 1/3 that remained on land was blown away completely. When you look at the screen, it tells you that it's called the Lewis Babel Ecological Reserve. Because it's the Tower of Babel, guys. They're trying to put it in your face. But they say it's named after this Swedish explorer named Lewis Babel. Let me tell you something of why that's kind of malarkey. Babel is not a Swedish last name. You can Google it. Babel is not a Swedish last name. It's not. So it could very well be fabricated. They could be saying it's. I'm not saying 100% that his name is not Lewis Babel, but I find it ironic that this area would be called Lewis Babel when indeed this is man-made. This entire thing is man-made. You see this circle? That was dug. People were digging in this area to make brick so they can build a tower, and they dug all around it. And then later on, when y'all flooded the area, all you saw left was water in that area where they was digging to make those bricks. And let me tell you something. I'll tell you something that's very, very cool. Did you know that this circle is the exact size? The exact size. The exact size of what Scripture says it is. The book of Jasher chapter 9 and 38 says that the Tower of Babel has a circumference of a 3 days walk, meaning you can walk around it, and by the time you get back to where you started, it would have been 3 days that passed. That's how big it was. And let me tell you something really, really cool. If I stood right here and I walked all the way around, guess what? That would be 3 days. That's how big this right here is. This is a 3 days walk too, and I'm going to prove it. It's basic math. Because according to Jasher, the Tower of Babel was 3 days walk in circumference. Now, the diameter of the Lewis Babel Ecological Reserve is 37.5 miles. All right. Now, a 3 day walk is 126 miles. Now, according to, common math and, algebra, geometry, whatever, circumference equals 2 pi r. So, pi is 3.14. Multiply that by the radius, and the radius is 18.75 because that's 37.5. The diameter divided by 2. So we multiply 3.14 times 18.75. We get 58.875. Now multiply that by 2, and then we get 117.75. Now that's only a 9 miles difference, because 126, which is the amount of miles you can walk in 3 days, minus 117, that's only 9. So 9 miles, by the way, is a 3-hour walk. And that's important for us to understand. So it's only 3 hours off. This is exactly 3 days minus 3 hours. So the math adds up. The math adds up perfectly. See, this is Jasher chapter 9, verse 38. And as to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed 1/3 part thereof. So 1/3 of the tower was swallowed into the earth. That reminds me of mud floods. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But let me tell you, it says, and the fire also descended from heaven and burned the other third. All right. And the other third is left to this day, and it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is a 3 days walk. All right, so we see that the circumference of the tower was 3 days walk. Scripture never lies, and scripture always is on the side of the Americas being the true Israel. You know what I'm saying? Or the Americas being the true biblical lands. The mud floods. All throughout Canada and all throughout the Americas and even all throughout the world, Earth has this natural phenomenon where every time it floods, or every time it rains very, very hard, or every time there's a dust storm, or every time there's whatever, a thin layer of dirt will be increased to the surrounding area. Meaning, every time a catastrophic event happens, dirt piles up, mud piles up, and it builds up. So a lot of history is lost because of mud floods. Depending on the area that you're looking at, sometimes the mud floods can happen very quickly. Sometimes it can happen very slowly. But mud floods they basically add height to the ground, so it covers things up. You have 100-year-old buildings that are covered up by earth because of mud floods. But science don't want to teach you about mud floods. Historians don't want to teach you about mud floods. However, it's a proven fact. They'll call you conspiracy theorists if you talk about them. But it's a proven fact. There's a lot of buildings where their first floor you can't even access it because, the dirt has covered it up. And a lot of the buildings in our land and a lot of the buildings in Canada, the ancient buildings, the ancient castles and towers and all that, they're gone because of mud floods. Whenever the earth flooded, especially in Canada, all that civilization that once existed is gone. In this whole area where we see Maine, we see New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, all of that was originally called Acadia. All right, Acadia, the land of Akkad, Akkad of Shinar. Now, all of this right here was the original Babylon. All right. Now, what we have to understand about that is all around here, Akkad of Shinar and Babylon, they're both Chaldea. They're both Chaldean empires, so they're both technically Babylon. All of this is all technically Babylon. All this north area that we see here. But everything we can find a lot of stone structures in Massachusetts, which led me to believe originally that the Tower of Babel was built in Massachusetts. I said that in Migration Series Part 2, but I was only a few hundred miles off. The Tower of Babel really was built right here. You know what I'm saying? I said it was in Massachusetts, but the reason I said it was in Massachusetts because Massachusetts has large megalithic stones scattered and stacked all around the state. You could tell there was a civilization, an empire there that was destroyed. All right, Maine as well. You see, Maine has all those lakes too. Maine was a part of it. You feel what I'm saying? This is the northern Euphrates River that you're looking at, called the St. Lawrence River. It connects directly to the Mississippi, which is also the Euphrates. All of this right here that you're looking at is Babylon. So this is a video by a guy named Earth Unknown. And he brought a lot of good information about Canada and how it has all these mysterious ruins buried beneath the earth and are now recently beginning to be explored and discovered.
Into the area, and how would it ever end up 9 meters below the riverbed? And if you didn't already know that concrete in various forms has been used all over the world by ancient people, you should check out the Wise Up channel, where he shows several examples of ancient concrete. Now, if you look at this picture here, I'm pretty sure that is the chunk of concrete they're talking about right there with the orange spray paint on it. And you gotta wonder, like, how could something so massive ever have gotten there without some sort of massive flow of land or something coming over it? A massive mud flood. And maybe this happened all across northern Canada, and that's why we don't generally see any ruins around Canada, because they're all so deep under the current ground level. And if you look at Canada on the map on Google Earth, it almost appears as if at some point in the ancient past, northern Canada was just obliterated by something. And I'm not going to speculate too much on what that might have been, but it almost seems as if it could have been the epicenter of a great cataclysm of the past. Like a massive explosion in the Hudson's Bay area, scattering thick debris and earth all across the land, destroying and burying anything that came before, leaving Hudson's Bay an ocean-filled blast crater. Or perhaps a great flood coming in from the north, washing everything back out to sea, tearing apart the northern coasts and leaving anything not washed into the ocean buried deep in the sediment. And of course, these are all just theories, but interesting things to think about. So here are some other interesting places in Canada that most people have never heard of. These are just a few interesting screenshots I took on Google Earth on my phone, and I couldn't remember exactly where I found this, but I believe it was somewhere in Quebec or northern Ontario. And to me it looks like some very curious looking stone blocks just poking up out of the ground, some of them almost completely covered, and then just disappearing into the hill. This one is somewhere in southern Alberta, and not huge, but still very interesting and old. And this place here in Kootenay Lake, British Columbia, reminds me of the site I covered in my previous video on El Caracol, the giant spiral in Mexico. Also found at the bottom of a lake, and perhaps at one point having a very similar purpose. If you haven't seen that, you'll want to check out this video here. Very interesting place. Now, this site near Fort Walsh, Saskatchewan, I find just fascinating. I would love to be able to go and explore this area and get a closer look at this place. I wonder what else could be found hidden in the hills throughout the area. Here's a website with a little more information and lots of great pictures. Megaliths on Mount Saskatchewan in Canada. Very little is known about these megaliths. They are located on private land and permission is required to access them. So maybe one day I'll have to figure out who to contact and see if I can get permission to go check the place out. That would be pretty awesome. But anyways, I'll leave the link to this website in the description and you can go check it out and get a closer look at some of these pictures for yourself. And of course, if any of you have ever been here before or to any of the places I talk about in my videos and you happen to know a little more about them, please let us know. But wow, isn't this place just incredible? It makes me imagine a time where ancient Canada could have been a place of megalithic stone castles right out of a fairy tale. Such a mysterious and magical feeling about it. But if that is the case, you really gotta wonder what happened here, and when. And really what happened at all these ancient sites around the world, where it seems almost as if just overnight, an entire world full of people just disappeared, leaving almost no trace that they were ever here. And what else could we find buried in these hills, and perhaps all across Canada? Now, this next place, I know that John Levi has showed before on his channel, but I just thought I would share it again because it's so cool and interesting looking. It's located on an island in a provincial park on Lake Winnipeg in Manitoba, and it's this huge site in a swamp just off the highway with all these shapes and patterns that appear to be sticking up out of the swamp. And these things that remind me of a bike chain or something, making me wonder if this could be the remains of some sort of massive machine. But whatever it is, it's certainly an interesting looking area. It would be cool to go there and take a closer look to better understand what this place is all about. Here's an awesome example of that chain looking pattern I was talking about, which you can find in a few areas around here. So here's just a couple more screenshots I took on the other side of this same lake, and it looks to me like an old stone wall or foundation or something that's been destroyed a long time ago. Now this next site in Nova Scotia, I believe, is some of the most solid evidence we have from megalithic builders in Canada. And for the following photos, I'd like to give credit to Herbert Eisengruber. You can go check out this website, which I will leave a link for down below. It has descriptions and pictures of all his finds in Nova Scotia, as well as GPS locations and the story of how he found the sites. In total, there are 6 dolmens, which are these large elevated stones on stone platforms. He also found what clearly appear to be stone walls and even a square hole in the ground looking like an entrance to an underground structure, as well as some other scattered stones that appear to have been shaped and marked by tools of some sort. And of course, this has been brought to the attention of official archaeologists, but they never show any interest and continue to call them natural formations. No surprise there. And when I contacted Herbert asking permission to use his photos, he also told me he would be doing an article about some interesting areas in Western Canada early this summer. So I look forward to seeing what that will be about. So we've got all these dolmens within such close proximity of each other, as well as what appears to be old stone walls. And here's a few pieces clearly resembling tool marks and man's handiwork. Especially this last corner piece here, I love this one. So it's just crazy, this site must have been something just totally out of this world in its prime. So once again, thanks to Herbert for his awesome work and some amazing photos. I recommend checking out the website and reading his story. Now here's another recent discovery that I just happened to stumble upon, and I don't want to get too into it, but I had to at least share this photo. And of course I will leave a link to the video where you can learn more about it. But this video was posted a few months ago by a guy in eastern Canada who found some strange rock formations and circles on his land, as well as this pyramid-like structure made of piled up white quartz. So I thought that was worth sharing. And I'm just gonna finish this video off with some pictures of another more recent discovery made in Russia of